Welcome back to our series on doing Tile 24. We're doing our bonus video on how to get counts of fixtures in Revit using the space placer in Revit. This is a more complicated way of doing our counts as it requires getting takeoffs of fixtures by room. So for example, for this room, you would need counts for 4 of these fixtures. And that is a lot of work to do by hand, so we're going to attempt to leverage Revit to help us out, at least for the most part. You might need to do some fixing. So first, you'll need to go and figure out how to get, space naming utility right here. It's a plugin for Revit, and it's super handy for doing MEP things. If you're an architect, you can use rooms, but we are not an architect, and we have rooms in a linked model, so we need to use spaces. If you are in the same model as your architect, then you don't need to do this, but if you have an architect's model linked into yours, then you do need space naming utility. Space naming utility essentially looks at your space, which is named something like unnamed space 254 or something like that, and it looks at the room that's also there, and it names it the same as what the architect has named your room. Super handy. The next thing you need to make sure you do is in Analyze tab, where it has spaces and zones. Click on Area and Volume Computations, and make sure that you have areas only checked and not areas and volumes. You might be wondering, what the heck does that have to do with counting fixtures? And I had the same question. And what it does is it stops your area, your space, at the ceiling right here. And if you have a fixture that's recessed, it's not going to count that fixture in that space because it's going to stop at the ceiling because it's calculating the volume of the space based on the ceiling's presence. And what we wanted to do is we wanted to ignore the ceiling and go all the way up to floor height. So once you have checked that in your calculations that it's doing area and not volumes, then you will ignore ceilings, which is what you want in case you haven't placed your fixtures exactly right, or in case your fixtures are above the ceiling because they're a cove or they're recessed or something like that. And then before you get started, check to make sure you know what your floor to ceiling heights are, or floor to floor, I should say. So this is 13.8 and this is 13.8. Check all your floors so you know what they are, and then go to a floor plan. One thing you must do before proceeding is click on your background and click Edit Type in your Properties bar. I know you can't see that because it's off the screen, but Edit Type. And make sure that room bounding is checked. It might not be checked. In fact, most likely it won't be checked. But this is important for Revit to be able to see your spaces. It has to bound the rooms based on walls. So make sure that's checked. And then you can proceed with creating your spaces. And again, we want our offset to be the 4 to 4 height, and then create spaces automatically. This is going to take a while, so the magic of video editing, we're going to make this go faster, but yours will probably take a few minutes. So once it's done, it'll tell you how many spaces it's created. It's probably created too many because it kind of creates spaces in little tiny closets or stuff like that. But that's fine. You don't need to worry about that. But it will have named all your spaces funny things like space S75. And that's where the space naming utility comes in. So launch your space naming utility, and you can, well, first do the process we just did for all your floors. Place spaces on all 3 of your floors. Make sure that you use the offset of the floor to floor height, and then run the space naming utility for all levels. And what that will do is it's going to take all your spaces, it's going to look at the rooms, and it's going to name them the same name and number as the room, which is super handy. And then what I've done in this view, it's kind of like a baking show. It's already done. Oh, it actually disappeared, so we can do it. Is create some colored zones so that it's easy to see. So in your properties bar, which I'll bring over, where it says color scheme, schema 1, and then instead of name, I don't know why you have to pick number, but it just is the way it is. It will color all of your rooms a different color, which is very handy for seeing your stuff. And you can go and analyze them and see what fixtures are where. So that's just handy to do. It's not required. Next, you will probably want to create a schedule. In the View tab, you can go to Schedule, Schedule Quantities, and then pick light fixtures, not spaces. You would think it would be spaces, but you actually pick light fixtures again. And you would press OK, but I've already done this like a baking show. So we're going to go pick out my lighting fixture space schedule. And, whoops, that's just a regular space schedule. And so in your fields, you'll want to pick from select available fields from space. And then you can go add name, number, and then for lighting fixtures, you can pick type mark, count, and fixture length. And again, like in our last videos, you can go check out video part 2 of making sure count and fixture length have calculate totals checked. And then you'll see you can get totals for each of your spaces. And clearly my space naming utility hasn't worked because they're all named space. So if that is a problem in yours, we might have to run the space naming utility again. So I've just done that, and you'll see that these have all changed. So you can see before your eyes how this names it, what the architect named them. And you now have counts per room. So you can see in meeting 1, there's a C1 and a P2. The only thing you have to be very careful of is making sure that you know which fixtures are by length and which are by each. You'll also notice that there are a number of fixtures that are not in rooms, and this is a very sad thing, and I'm very sorry for on Autodesk parts that this doesn't work. But what it means is this fixture is just not completely in that room. So I know for a fact that our W1s are on stairs, and they happen to be kind of a little on the wall, and the stair, the way the room is defined, is a little bit away from it, so that fixture doesn't fit inside the room. So this isn't a perfect method. You'll need to filter out all of your exterior fixtures because those obviously won't be in rooms. And then you'll have to go investigate why some of your fixtures are not showing up in rooms. Again, not a perfect system. But you can use highlight and model, which will go and take you to those fixtures so you can see why they aren't fitting in a room. And you can export this to Excel and then adjust it. And that, again, if you really have to do by room method, I still believe that this is probably faster than doing hand takeoffs. So again, you can go to R, export report schedule, and export this to a tab delineated TXT file, open it in Excel, and then you can modify these fixtures to go in the rooms that they are. It's a start. It's not complete, but it gets you most of the way. And who knows, maybe your building is more perfect than ours and they're more defined and you won't have as many that are not outside of rooms. Or maybe you'll be in a project where every single fixture is outside of rooms and this really isn't helpful to you. But at least this is a method that you can do in 5 or 10 minutes, and either it saves you time or you only lost 10 minutes. So it's a benefit either way, or a wash. Thanks for watching. Hope this is helpful for you. Thanks for your views.